Hello, friends!
Hello!
Welcome to Borgcast Original Series 1.3 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
She's so thrilled. We have a little bit of last time.
Okay.
Andy, re-flash the bridge.
Yes, because I asked about that.
Yeah, it's a message indicator to tell them how urgent the message is. Flash being highest priority.
Okay.
The wiki says Flash is reserved for initial enemy contact messages or operational combat messages of extreme urgency. Brevity is mandatory. And now that is something to live by, particularly considering some of the sermons I've had to sit through.
Yeah, I would fail. Sorry.
Flash messages are to be handled as fast as humanly possible ahead of all other messages, with in-station handling time not to exceed 10 minutes.
That's like the blue letter thing in Hudsucker Proxy.
Yes. Messages of lower precedence are interrupted on all circuits involved until the handling of the flash message is completed.
Oh, okay. So flash the bridge means stop everything else.
Stop the press.
And get everything else through.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's really, really urgent, and they'll know that they've got to pick that message up before anything else. Fair enough.
You might also have heard this in Crimson Tide. When the EAM messages are received, the radio will call with Con Radio. We are receiving flash traffic. Emergency action message. Recommend alert 1. There we are.
Have we seen Crimson?
Yeah, we saw it very recently. It was the
Did
one with
we?
the attempted mutiny on the sub. With Denzel Washington.
Oh, that's good, that is.
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. And I would say far better than tonight's episodes.
Yeah.
So the first of our choice ripe selection, and I did remember it being bad, so you were warned, is Mud's Women.
Captain's log, stardate 1329.1. The Enterprise brings aboard the survivors of an ill-fated vessel.
Hello.
And the ladies? Is this your crew, Captain?
This is me cargo.
I read once a commander has to act like a paragon of virtue. I never met a paragon.
Neither have I. Mr. Walsh, I'm convening a ship's hearing on your actions. Mr. Spock will supply you with any legal information you may need.
You're a hard-nosed one, Captain.
And you're a liar, Mr. Walsh.
Take the ones or you'll get killed.
Just have those crystals here when I get back.
Yeah.
Written by Stephen Candell from a story pitch by one Gene Roddenberry. The pitch reads, duplicating a page from the Old West, hanky-panky aboard with a cargo of women destined for a far-off colony. Yeah.
Cargo with women says it all, doesn't it?
Candell will go on to write the next two Mud stories, as well as another one for the animated series called The Jihad. So here's hoping that's rather more sensitively handled, eh? It's directed by Harvey Hart, but it's his only Trek gig, as he was considered awkward to work with by the showmakers, apparently.
Possibly he objected to the gobshite he was having to direct.
Yes. It was a candidate to be the second pilot, but NBC were rightly worried about the content being about selling women throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, they were right to be worried about that.
Plus the guest stars being, and I quote, an intergalactic pimp and 3 space hookers.
Yep.
Yeah. Away you go, Bean.
Right.
Rip it a new one.
So the teaser is quite promising. Because the teaser is, it's captain's log, they're pursuing an unidentified vessel that's refusing to identify itself. It's pushing its engines too hard, it's clearly running away and refusing to respond. Goes into an asteroid field that Spock says has a shimmer rating? Don't know what the fuck that is.
All right, I didn't pick up. Maybe that's why they're all glowing, because all the meteors are glowing and
Yeah.
Mudship is just a glow. This is actually one instance where the special edition is actually better.
Okay.
Because they replaced the glowy light that is Mudship with something that's got like nasals and looks Star
Oh,
Trek
okay.
to our
Yeah.
modern eyes anyway.
Yeah.
So, hey-ho.
Anyway, his engines are gone. Nothing can be done unless the Enterprise puts its deflector field, well, they call it deflector screen, around the other ship as well. And then it's affecting their power and circuits are going ping. Yeah. You've got Uhura. She's still in the wrong uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Who's at the nav? Mr. Farrell Williams.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Yes, he'll be our first to survive more than one story.
Yeah.
Hey!
But the end teaser is the deflector won't hold for long. So as a setup, you're pursuing an unidentified ship. You don't know what's going on. Because they're trying to save lives. They've extended their shields, but the ship is in jeopardy. That's a good teaser.
This is proper sci-fi. Woohoo! Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't last.
No. So initially, there's nothing to lock onto. So that's where they can't beam anybody out. But then they get a distress signal and can now lock on, and you get a shit Irish cowboy.
Yeah, he is painfully Bigorra Irish, isn't he?
Oh,
Played by Roger C. Carmel, who was born in Brooklyn, so certainly not first-generation Irish. Maybe he'd heard some Irish people talk in a bar and decided he was going to do an impression. Anyway, he'll return to voice his character in the animated series, but he's a regular for voiceovers for 80s Transformer cartoons and was the voice of Cyclonus. Oh, I think that's the one that looks like a giant hovercraft from space, for no good reason. Although that could be Scourge. I always get the two mixed up. Llama God will put me right.
Yes.
He's another BJ and the Bear actor, of course. In a couple of episodes of 60s Batman as well. And it looks like he's raided a dressing-up box.
And he's wearing a really terrible earring that looks like someone I know wears for Christmas.
Although I think he's supposed to be a space pimp, and that's apparently how space pimps dress.
Right.
He also comes with his own theme tune, sadly.
Meaning no ingratitude, gentlemen, but just where is it I find myself?
You're aboard the USS Enterprise.
So then they beam up the three women who then mesmerise the crew.
With soft focus, yeah.
And it's like, there's an extent to which you think, I think particularly knowing the characters later, fair enough of McCoy and Scotty. I think they always were going to react that way to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But Spock is also sort of affected-ish.
No, he's not. He's sat there with his arms folded and looking at the other two going, what?
But you do find him on other occasions smiling quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I
throughout
think
this episode?
he's smiling at McCoy and Scotty's reactions. And
But
the other
Vulcans
crew.
aren't supposed to smile, are they?
Okay. He's quite often amused by human beings and their weaknesses. Of course, he is, of course, as referred to in this episode, a Vulcanian.
Yes. Or a volcano or something. One of the women just appears to be wearing a picnic blanket. I mean, it's purple and it's quite pretty.
Oh, that's Magda wearing the blue dress. Yes, they're colour-coded
it's blue in some shots and purple in others.
Yeah, but they are colour-coded for our understanding. Green dress is Ruth and red dress is Eve.
Right.
Yes. And what dresses as well. Oh. I mean, Ruth's has got a massive split along the front.
I know.
Did it not fit properly? I don't know.
Boob slit.
Yeah. But bear in mind, this is 2 stories so far, counting the cage, where men are trading female slaves. That's Roddenberry.
Yeah. And it's like the women are their cargo. It's just horrible. Kirk is mesmerised, but not to the extent that he's just a complete gimp. I don't know whether you call it snapping to, but there's an extent to which he can resist.
Yeah, because he's the hero, you see.
Well, to be honest, I didn't take it that way. That sort of reading into it to me is kind of reading back into Shatner's character, what isn't necessarily there actually in this season. I took it more that it's because he's the captain and he must therefore have...
Well, to be fair, later on they say that actually he's more in love with his ship. So that might be the reason, and that kind of works.
Yeah.
Even if it does make you wonder what he does in the Jeffries tubes at nights, but anyway.
Yeah. And he's convening a hearing and says that Walsh should be confined to his quarters. And then you've got Leo surrounding women and basically lets loose his name is actually Harry and they're not allowed to submit to a med scan. Because of everything going fizz-bang, they're calling it lithium. Now,
yes.
Is it lithium all the way through the original series and becomes dilithium in sort of next gen era, or does it change to dilithium at some point?
It will change to dilithium next time it's mentioned in the series and will remain so for the rest of it, yeah.
Fair enough. So they're making out for Rigel 12. What is it with Rigel as a planetary system? Within the Star Trek universe, it crops up a hell of a lot.
Because it sounds cool.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's the name of a character in Farscape as well.
It is, yes.
Why?
It sounds cool.
Okay, fine. So in this hearing, you've already got the fact that Kirk is saying he's concerned about the presence of the women and the effect on their crew. Well, if he's having a hearing into mud, why can't he leave the women in the quarters and just have a hearing into...
Or, and here's something revolutionary, if he knows that his men, including himself, are struggling being around these women, maybe get some women crew members to go and do the trial. I mean, he's got a lieutenant on the bridge. I'm sure there's some other senior women officers around on the ship they could use.
Or some gay men like Sulu,
Or
except they don't
possibly
know that yet.
yes, some gay men, alternatively. Yeah, interestingly, Sulu doesn't crop up, does he?
No, he
Perhaps
does,
that's
and
it.
he does say...
Oh, he does, you're right. He comes
But
onto
it's
the bridge with
interestingly-
Farrell, yeah.
But interestingly, he's not as affected. But
No,
when
he's kind of the
someone's-
same to Farrell, isn't he? You know.
Yeah, but
Never
then
mind,
he
chum.
sort of says, "Oh, how can I not notice?" And I immediately read that as closeted, because he doesn't actually seem to be affected, and then pretends to be.
Oh, right.
But it shouldn't be necessary to be closeted in the Star Trek future. But I totally understand why it would have been necessary in 1960s TV program, slash in the 1960s at all, frankly. But yeah, so the computer says his name's not Leo Walsh, his real name's Harcourt Fenton Mudd, and he's got a criminal record that includes all sorts of things. And he's described as a menace to navigation, and he's operating a vessel without a licence. And he says, "No, I'm wiving settlers." Oh, fucking hell.
Wow. Yes, so welcome to the future of, indeed, the Wild West. I mean, yeah, that was Roddenberry's pitch. It was just taking an idea from a Wild West series and sticking it on a spaceship. Yeah.
And the computer can't get a decipherable reading on the females. And then they all have the same story, which apparently is they don't have any men to fucking mend clothes for. What the fuck?
Which, again, back in the days of the Wild West made some sense. I mean, it still wasn't nice.
No,
but...
it wasn't true. Trust me, nobody has ever gone, "Oh, I don't have anyone to mend clothes for. I don't have anyone for company." Fine. I don't have anyone to look after in a more sort of generic sense that may possibly include mending clothes. Possibly. But even if you're somebody who, I mean, I'm not good at this stuff, likes things like embroidery, sewing, whatever, you don't want to be mending clothes. You want to be creating art.
Well, but the point is that was the gendered stereotype role for the Wild West. It shouldn't be the gendered stereotype role for the future. It shouldn't be the gendered stereotype role for now. But you know.
Yeah, no, words like that shouldn't be coming out of a woman's mouth. If a man said that's what these women want, he'd be wrong, but it would fit the gender stereotypes of the time. No women, even back
Again,
then.
the time of the Wild West.
Yeah, but even at the time of the Wild West, no woman would have gone, "Oh, I really wish I had someone to mend clothes for." They just said something fucking else.
I don't know, it depends how enculturated they were that was what was expected of them. So they may well have.
I can see them saying, "I don't have someone to care for."
But the way of showing care for men back in those days may well have been, mending their clothes and cooking their dinners.
Yeah, but people can like cooking and therefore say, "Oh, I don't have anyone to cook for," and actually they quite like cooking. But if you like sewing, what you want to do is sew something nice, not just sew up somebody's bloody crotch hole.
Again, I have a feeling that was kind of the way that they were
Viewed,
brainwashed
yes,
in those
but
days.
I'm still not sure. But it's just bollocks anyway. And then Eve, every now and again he's sort of glitching out of character or whatever and saying and sort of says, "Help us, please," to Kirk, and sort of practically begs him. And then you've got the other one with the green dress.
Okay, so the green dress one is Ruth.
Right, because she's the name I missed, because you've got Eve and you've got Magda, and I just then had green dress, sorry. And she accidentally walks past the medical scanner and it goes all odd.
Oh, that's brilliant, that, isn't it? And McCoy says, "Would you walk past my panel again, please? I've not heard it called that before."
But McCoy is just confused because he's also still mesmerised.
Yeah, he also he gets a guy in a greeny brown overall to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know what division he's supposed to be in, because green, I think, generally. But anyway, he's named here as Connors, but he's played by Eddie Paskey, who will make 58 appearances in the series as Lieutenant Leslie.
Oh,
Although he'll be in Security Red in future.
okay. And then you have Eve in the captain's quarters, clearly trying to seduce him through a weird screen that's in the quarters for reasons I can't make out because it's see-through.
It's cool, though. But
Is
yeah,
it?
I don't quite know why you choose to have that in your quarters, but it does make for cool shots.
Right.
And it's in Rand's quarters in the next one as well for equally cool reasons. But there we go.
But then she sort of says, "Oh, I do like you, but I can't go through with it." And it's just like, oh, right, fine. She says she's to Harry that she's struggling. It must be near her time. Bones on the bridge mentions his scanner going bleep to Spock, who does the sort of raised eyebrow. And it turns out the women are ageing, and they're taking anti-aging drugs. And they're doing it for the men, and you get the whole sort of, oh, I'm a bit older, I hate myself.
Yep, we're back to women looking a bit old is horrific territory, aren't we, again? So shallow. Roddenberry.
Yeah. And then part of the plan is that Mudd's going to take over the ship and sell the women to the guys on the mining planet, Rigel 12, and insist that Kirk wipes his criminal record before the ship can take off with the lithium. And Kirk's like, no deal to the miners. You're going to need aid. You're going to need medical supplies. You want any of them, you've got to deal with us. So they have to transport down to try and get the lithium themselves. And then the women are there with the miners, and they're having a dance in a cave, because of course that's what you do.
Having a dance. Right, so the main miner is called Ben Childress. He's played by Gene Dynarski, who will crop up again in the original series and in the Next Generation.
I thought I recognised him.
Yes, Commander Ophil Quinteros from 110, 110, etc. He's also in All the President's Men and Close Encounters.
Okay. I haven't seen Close Encounters.
No, nor have I, actually, but there you go. That's quite a famous sci-fi film, so I drop it in there.
Yeah, fair enough. And then Eve is sort of losing her looks, and she
Vaguely, a bit. Not much, to be honest.
No.
I mean, when it happens to the other two, it's much more obvious, particularly on Ruth.
Yeah.
Like, she's got loads of prosthetics on.
Yeah, she's got looks like scars rather than aging. It looks more than that, doesn't it, on her? So she's maybe it's the dust, and so the men fight over the other two women, and then Eve runs out and says, "Yeah, they're arguing because the loser gets me."
Yeah, it's a raffle. It's like, yeah.
And so she runs into the storm and then starts aging.
Or the third miner is called Benton. Did you notice?
No!
Hey!
Sergeant Benton! No, but Sergeant Benton wouldn't have behaved like that.
Exactly. He'd be far more honourable. Played by the unfortunate named Seaman Glass.
Okay.
Who will crop up in an episode of Buck Rogers. Whoa!
Oh, okay. And the storm is ionising the atmosphere, so they can't find because Childers, whatever his name is, goes after her. And the storm is ionising the atmosphere, and they're trying to search, but it's depleting their power. And then Scotty says, did you get any lithium? And then you get some proper shacting where Shatner goes, I didn't get any. I should have found a way. Which is, bad, but still better than Jack Palance was in Buck Rogers.
I do like it when he apologises to Scotty.
That's nice.
Comes across quite naturally, actually. That's good.
And then Eve is cooking for Childers. And that is his name, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks quite nice, actually. But then he's like, I do my own cooking. And you think, oh, fair enough, you're fairly, do you know what I mean? Civilised or whatever, that, actually you do your own cooking. And then she's like, oh, you're going to be all female cooking again. Like, what? And then she gives him advice on how to clean his pans by sandblasting them. It's really just, you're just like, what the fuck am I watching? And then she has futuristic round playing cards, which I have tried playing cards with before. They were a thing at one point, possibly in response to Star Trek, I don't know. You can't play with them, it doesn't work. And actually, when you're drinking beer, after a while, you find you're losing because you thought your card was a coaster. And you really needed, for example, the 7 of diamonds and your drinks on it. And then Kirk and Spock appear, and it's the Venus drug.
She's got it. Yeah, baby, she's got it. I'm your Venus. I'm your fire. Your desire. Well, I'm your Venus. I'm your fire. Your desire.
That she's been taking, and he offers her some wine gums, which clearly look different to the Venus thing, but she has the wine gums anyway. And then somehow she's actually de-aged again. Because even though she took a placebo, it's if you believe in yourself, you can somehow de-age.
Yeah.
Or some utter cunting bollocks.
Which doesn't at all fit what we saw earlier when,
No.
Ruth clearly suddenly had scars all over. That's something to do with belief in yourself or whatever
No.
crap that they're going up with at this point.
And at some point, and I didn't even understand this, they talk about a subspace radio marriage.
Yeah,
What the fuck is that?
The other two miners have got married to their women over subspace. So I
Is that
quite
like Zoom?
I
They had a Zoom wedding
They had a
ceremony.
Zoom wedding, yeah. Wow.
Which might have been nice, but carries no legal weight. And then they're like, oh no, you've sold us shoddy goods. It's like, people are not for sale.
You
And
can't sell people.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, actually, Eve wants to stay behind, says the bloke on her
Yeah,
behalf.
yeah.
Because we need to talk, don't we? Like, what? Fuck? No? And it's like they're so devastated by the loss of their looks. It's just like... And also she says, you don't want someone to cook for you or be needy or cry or sew things. I'm thinking, okay, I've done cooking in the past. I think I might have occasionally sewn things, but mostly I just say, fuck that, buy a new one. Arguably, I am needy. I have occasionally cried, I suppose. But I don't think any of those are why you married me.
Probably not, to be fair.
I think Star Trek The Next Generation, more specifically, had more to do with it than anything else. But I'm just like, fucking hell, is that what you think a marriage is?
Yeah.
Bloody hell, it's just horrible. What does she think the man does? Just say ugh and eat a chicken? I mean, just, I don't know. It was just so... It was dialogue that could only have been written by men. Women would never say that shit.
No, one would hope.
But even in the fucking Wild West, they wouldn't have done any more than they would have gone, you must want someone to... My job as your wife is to mend your clothes. There are other things that even then, even with internalised misogyny, women would have said ahead of, I should be sewing your clothes.
Well,
So, yeah, it's a load of absolutely cunting bollocks. And if Gene Roddenberry wasn't already dead, I'd slice his head off and get a badger to fuck the hole.
well, you're in trouble when even Shatner is criticising it.
Oh, wow. I want to hear
And
this.
he's reported as saying that NBC allowed Mudd's Women to be produced at all is still a minor miracle. And he ain't wrong. Wow.
Is there an opposite of a miracle that's like a miracle but satanic?
Yeah. Don't know, really.
Because that's what that is. It's not a miracle that NBC produced it, because a miracle is supposed to be a good thing.
Yeah, you're right. It's a crapical or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But whatever the opposite of one is, it's that.
Funny enough, Uhura is given little to do in this story. There, you'll discover that's a bit of a pattern, sadly. Originally, there was a scene written where Mudd was going to offer her the drug as well. But that was cut for being too long, apparently.
Well, I hope she said no and kicked him in the nads.
So, yeah, it's not quality, is it, really?
It's bollocks.
So we have heard from Mr. Boss.
Oh, okay. What did he make of this, then?
I didn't have high hopes for this one based on the title. And characters with dodgy Irish accents are usually a bad omen. Yeah. At least in this case, the accent was generally false and didn't last long. Yeah, it started out very Irish and then just ended up with a bit. Very odd.
Like maybe the Irish was part of the Leo Walsh persona, and once he
yeah.
found out, he dropped it.
Although Leo Walsh isn't the most of Irish names. But anyway, the soft focus shots of the women were a bit cringy at times, although I would have been quite happy with Harry Mudd as a character if he was in a better line of work.
Yeah.
Have to say, I didn't really get the ending, because if they needed the pill to change appearance and she didn't take it, why did she change anyway?
Yeah.
I'd have to watch it again to find out what I missed, but I really don't want to.
No.
You didn't miss anything. It makes naff all sense, mate. Also, to me, without the pill, they just look the same women, but without makeup, so we're fine.
Yeah.
On the plus side, congratulations to Mr. Farrell for surviving an entire episode sitting in navigation. Yeah. P.S. I'm going to guess 2 minutes 37 seconds for the first use of the C word by Anne-Marie. I think it was a little later than that, but not much, I suspect.
Actually, to be fair to Boss, that was probably about the point in the episode that I said it, just not so
Yeah.
much in our
When you were talking about it.
Yeah.
yes.
What did Parry think?
Hello, Orgs. Parry here to talk about Mud's Woman. Now, one of the advantages of watching through on broadcast order is this episode comes later. So considering the last two, Where No Man Has Gone Before, I think we all thought was a pretty decent episode, and I think we thought the Carbonite Maneuver was actually a damn good one of the better episodes we've seen so far. Sadly, we come on to this. So to say some nice things about it, first mention of lithium, well, it's lithium at this point, becomes dilithium later, as part of the engine, lithium crystals. That was an interesting thing. There's an interesting thing about if you're interested in does the Federation use money? They hadn't thought of that at this point, and there definitely is some form of finance going around, although you could argue at this point that we are outside of the general sphere of the Federation, and this is where independents go. The lithium miners could be independent people who've left the Federation to go and make piles of money mining lithium. I did like the way the ship kind of died down. The bridge seemed quieter. It could just be my imagination and darker. It seemed like some of the screens were off when they were conserving power. And in the digital remaster, they actually do make a spaceship for Mud, and it blowing up in the asteroid feels kind of cool. I'm pretty sure in the original it was just a big flare of light. So, let's get into this. First big problem, blinding obvious one, hellishly male gaze this episode. Really, there's constant ogling of Mud's women's backsides. They're slinking around constantly. Actually, I'll put this into one of the good things, not the male gaze stuff, but Spock. Spock seems to be done with this episode. He is basically spending this episode pointing out how rubbish his crew is, how apparently they're all wooed by these women. Like the scene in the transporter room, he could have answered that call from Kirk, but he's sitting there going, "No, Scotty's job. Stop ogling the women and do your job, Scotty." And he does just seem to be constantly going through it, going "Cough," and smirking slightly. There's things like the scene. I did have a laugh with the scene with the computer kind of basically told that all the men were unable to stand up at the moment. But this is the thing, it's like the crew are absolutely wiped out by three mildly attractive women in slinky cocktail dresses with sexy music playing behind them and a ton of Vaseline on the lens. And it just makes the crew look really bad at their jobs. Like, they're constantly distracted and can't do anything. And half the plot happens because they let the crew, they let these women know stuff and, let them get a hold of communicators and stuff. So, the crew really do it. Particularly that guy, the slightly wonky-looking helmsman that we've got this time. The crew are for the most part, are absolutely terrible. There is also the concept that they're swapping women for crystals. Let's get down to it. Now, Kirk refuses, in fairness, but the way it's written, or at least the way I saw it, he refused it on account that he didn't want to give Mud the upper hand. It wasn't actually that he had any objection to swapping the women for apparently 2 lithium crystals each is the worth of a person. Now, the concept of Mud taking out wives, we didn't initially have the idea that they were being sold, although presumably some money has changed hands, but they did very much say that they were volunteering to go, and I did hear this sort of thing did happen in the Old West. Doesn't make it right, but the idea that there were people who would set up lonely men out on the frontier with wives, so that kind of makes sense. But just the whole concept of swapping women, the whole thing of the pills that make you beautiful and also do hair and makeup. In fact, most of it seemed hair and makeup. And just the way it's just the whole thing is icky as hell and really, really dodgy and horrifically sexist. It's just this is just terrible. This is exactly the sort of thing that you worry about running into when watching a TV series from the 1960s. Is that anyone thought this was an okay idea for an episode, and that there's so much complicity with the crew. That. They aren't ever saying to the women, "We'll take you back, we'll take you somewhere safe." It's very much a yes, Mud's been arrested. I mean, I did like seeing the Federation being space police, but oh god, this was a pretty piss poor episode. This has been it's not even funny bad. It's just it's got a lot of ick to it. So I'll be back. I'm going to go for a nice big long shower, and get the smell of this episode off me, and I'll be back in a bit to talk about the enemy within. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah, the other downside of broadcast stories is that then you have to watch Enemy Within next, and you probably need another shower, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
neither episode is good in any order, let's face it.
No. Yeah, the fact that Spock is resistant is good, but for a start, there ought to be gay men who will resist, and there ought to be women who don't.
Yes, which would be far more entertaining.
And there also ought to be men who are just not bothered.
Yeah, you think, but yeah. And good point about, initially you think Kirk is being quite noble and saying, I'm not going to trade women for crystals. And then he gives in really quickly and does it. And it's like, oh. And good point about money being mentioned.
Yeah.
Oops. But there we are. Early days.
Yeah, and that's, to be honest, that's the least of the fucking worries
Yes,
about these
exactly.
episodes.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, dear.
Right, Drew and Tracy.
Hello, is there feedback for mods, women?
And what do we think of that one then?
Uh,
Oh dear.
it's good stuff. I feel that there was stuff that confused me when I watched it first time round as a little kid, and 40 years later I'm still quite confused.
Okay, so what confused you?
Oh, so the drug, okay? So
you cut to the chase, yeah.
The drug,
Was
it's
actually a placebo?
yeah, the end bit. I never really got it, and I still don't understand it.
And I don't know.
So they can think themselves beautiful.
Yeah, so can I... And what Mud was saying is like it's a placebo, or what Kirk was saying is this is a placebo, and if you believe in yourself, then you'll always be young and beautiful, and you'll always be what you want to be. So if I believe in myself, can I always be like 25?
I guess so.
Is that going to work?
I like the moral behind it. You know, you don't need a drug to be attractive, but as I say, it confused me as a child, and I'm still no clearer on how that's supposed to. Because the Venus drug, not only does it make you like smooth your skin and that, it does your makeup and your hair.
Well, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it gives you firmer
okay.
tits as well from the look of it.
Yep.
But, so Mud was touting, he was like, basically, he's like a smuggler of these women, or like a seller of these women, isn't he?
Well,
Like,
you know what? I know, like, the people have spoken about this episode for like 40 years, and people say, oh, he's like a space pimp. But watching it this time, I was really watching for that, because I'm sure he's going to get criticism. He's not really a pimp, is he? Because the women want to do what they're doing.
he's almost like a date setter-upper. Like, we have like these dating apps now, so he's basically just introducing...
He's a futuristic Tinder.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm not saying he's a goodie or anything. He's obviously
No, he's a bit of a
criminal,
sly shit.
but he's not like a pimp. He's not forcing them to do it, is he?
No, but he did try and get Evie to do the dirty with
Yes, I guess
Kirk.
he's pushing them, but not forcing them.
I'm not quite sure there's much of a difference.
Mm.
But my take on the end of it, so they go to Rigel 12 and they meet the three miners,
Yes.
right? So two of them just fuck off and get married and do the whatever. And then the last guy, I didn't quite catch his name.
I don't know, yeah.
The guy with Evie. So he's a right shit to her.
I know.
Oh, you expect me to like this woman's
It's the
cooking
worst,
and you...
right? What does he say about, you something about you're plain-faced and no
Yeah,
pumping
what's happened
of-
to your looks? Yeah, every man said that to their wife
Awful,
after
isn't
about
it?
40 years.
It's awful.
But she stays with him.
I know. It's just like I'm saying. I'm confused about this episode. It's just mixed messages.
He was just a shit to her, and she decided to stay. I just didn't quite get that. I can't let this pass without talking about Mud's neck hair.
I know. I've never
It was
noticed
making
it
me
before.
heave.
Just poking
That was
out.
just really
like it's got some
nasty.
hairy shirt on underneath.
And they blew all their lithium, although we now know it is dilithium
yes,
crystals.
early days of Star Trek, isn't it? Yeah.
Then how could they transport?
Well, there's on battery power, but I like that at the beginning when they're like just flying along and he goes and like all the lights go. I like they've just blown a fuse or something. It's good times.
And why would I didn't quite get why there was this big thing about, oh yeah, there's minors on Rigel 12 and you're going to marry them, and one's like, you're going to be like a mayoress and whatever, all these like royalties. And then they went down there and it was a fucking dust planet.
No, it's you're going to be the Duchess of
that's
Dirt.
it. You're the Duchess of Dust.
There's
Yeah.
nothing there, is there? Not good prospects, is it?
No.
I guess I was probably thinking, I don't know, they're rich. Maybe like we do it for a little bit and then we'll all go and live somewhere else.
Then
I
you
don't
should have
know.
had a little bit of a better. Well, you should have had a dishwasher to start with.
Yeah.
You had to put your pans out and get them cleaned with sand.
Yep.
Anyway, Mr. Farrell, he was a weird-looking fellow, wasn't
The guy who will be Chekhov one day.
he?
Yes, he's got.
They've got all these people in the chair so far that you know. Oh, you're not going to last. You're not going to last.
Yep. So anyway, I mean, it's a classic. Again, I'm going to say this about everyone. It's a
Yeah.
classic.
Well, they are classics,
Muds,
aren't they?
women, it's classic. Is it great? Yeah, it's all right.
I
It's
enjoyed
okay.
it for its
I
entertainment
enjoy
value.
it. Yes.
I do. I have to just say, I do like at the beginning the way that every time Spock and Scotty had a scene, they have to turn like over the shoulder look.
Yeah.
The way they report to the captain. I liked it.
Yeah, it's
I
good,
haven't
it's
seen
good.
these before, so I'm just taking it as it is.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Classic Trek.
That's
Yep.
what we're here for.
Yep.
Anyway, should we leave it there?
Okay.
Take it easy, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you're still confused by the end 40 years later, because it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Nope.
I think that perhaps a better way to describe Mud rather than a pimp is a people trafficker. Because a pimp repeatedly sells the same woman over and over. Whereas a people trafficker gets someone who wants to go somewhere else, tells them lies.
Yeah, they go to paradise. And,
tells them lies, doesn't let them change their mind, but usually they did originally consent.
Yeah.
But it was for something other than what they were actually given.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to try very hard to like Mud as a character in this, and it's not just the neck hair,
No.
which admittedly is
It
distracting.
gets bad, but yeah. So I think probably people trafficker is a better description than pimp. But he's still horrible.
Yeah.
Whichever way you look at it, he's horrible. And actually, you know what? I thought to myself as well that Mr. Farrell was a weird-looking fella.
Oh, bless him.
I mean, not that he can help that, but I did think that there's a particular shot, a way of shooting him that's unflattering, if you see what I mean, and it made me think that at the time. It was just one particular shot of him on the bridge. But I think you're right that this is what a lot of people think of when they think of classic Trek, and that's why people don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
What did the Lama God think of this? And is he going to go to a Transformers place?
Well, let's find out.
Longos log, Scott date, Fiction, Kurg, the women. Okay, so there's something this episode does which is quite upsetting and which flies in the face of everything that is core and central to Star Trek. And that is quite an obvious one, but one that I think is overlooked. And that is the fact that when they visit the mining planet, the miners are all wearing clothes that have buttons. Yes, buttons! You're not supposed to have buttons in the Star Trek era. Buttons are out of fashion. I mean, until they come back in Picard, so actually maybe it's not that bad at all. No, actually this episode is awful for a whole raft of other reasons. Or one particularly big reason, and that is indeed the whole central premise, which is Mud's women. Now, you could say that you just need to overlook this sort of thing because it was made in the 60s and times have changed and behaviours have changed, but you could argue that Mud selling the women is the worst thing at all, and it's particularly bad. But on the other hand, there is a market, there's demand, and sex work is work. Although there's a market, money, yeah, okay, this is meant to be the Federation, maybe it's not quite the Federation of the Next Generation era, so we'll move past that one. But the main problem really is the fact that the women are meant to have some sort of mystery to them, which is what makes them so enthralling, which is why McCoy and Scotty instantly turn into lectures when they appear on the Enterprise, and that's why the women themselves start to look more dowdy and unappealing to the male gaze as the effects of this drug that they're on wear off. It turns out that no, actually there is no drug. So what are we meant to actually get from this episode then? The fact that essentially McCoy and Scotty are so starved that they are basically just lectures, that the sight of any new women is going to bring them out into a rather misogynistic display like that? Are we meant to believe that all women can look beautiful and attractive and attainable if they just will themselves to be? I mean, this is an absolutely hideous and awful message. And for a show that prides itself on its progressive messaging and has done right from the start, this is not a good showing at all. It is really quite distasteful distasteful, and I'm really hoping there isn't much more of this going forwards. Jo was in the room while I was watching this episode, and as she asked, does this episode explain why geek men are the way they are? Because, yeah, we've been told that Star Trek is something progressive, and yet here we are in this episode being told and shown that women are basically prizes to be sought after, and that they submit themselves willingly to be prizes as just rewards for men who are hardworking and just do the right thing. So this really is feeding into incel culture, and you can kind of maybe start to understand why some Trek fans have rather missed the point along the way. So definitely a problematic episode, this one, and I think that's probably all I've got to say about it, really. Are there any high points? Well, Spock does spend most of the episode looking rather wryly amused at the behaviour of his shipmates, but on the other hand, he should be telling them to knock it off. So yeah, so on the whole, whilst I think that this is a classic one, and that Harcourt Fenton Mudd is meant to be a classic and beloved character, it's difficult to fall in love with him this time round because this is such a distasteful story. So yeah, I think we'll move on from this one and just hope that the next one's a little bit better, shall we?
Yeah, and to think that my problem with Mudd in Discovery was his murderousness, but to be honest, he's definitely not much better in this, is he?
No, but maybe this episode does explain cunty geek men.
Maybe.
Is there an equivalent in Doctor Who that would explain what's his face? Is it Ian Levine? Is that his name?
That would take a whole podcast of its own to go into explaining Ian Levine. But anyway, there is the great contradiction of Trek and Gene Roddenberry in that he set up this series that supposedly had these values of equality and having women officers and at the same time him being a lecherous old dude that, yeah. And I can't help feeling that actually a lot of what's good about Trek was what other writers put in rather than what Roddenberry put in. And any goodness he generally dragged down somewhat. So
not as bad. So not in the same way, but like Lucas with Star Wars, because the best ones were like Empire, that was actually directed by someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't smear Lucas with the same brush as I would Roddenberry.
But in terms of
Lucas's limitations are artistic and not moral. But
yeah.
You know, and the more you read about Roddenberry, the more you wonder just how it was possible that Trek was actually as progressive and as good as it was.
Yeah.
It just didn't fit the man, but there we are.
Well, the only thing I can say in response to that is possibly he himself knew that he ought to be better.
Yes, he probably had good aspirations.
And failed all the
he
time.
frequently failed on. I think that's possibly, yes.
And that therefore he liked the idea that in the future humans would not only aspire to be better, but actually manage it. It's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's necessarily the case, but it's a possible explanation.
It's a theory that works.
Yeah. We've heard from Doreen.
We have. Let's see
Oh
what they
dear.
make.
Have we broken her?
I have just watched Harry Mudd's Women, and it was terrible. I was not at all happy with how women had to be beautiful, and definitely not with, oh, she believed in herself, so she made herself beautiful. That's like saying somebody in real poverty can work themselves out of it. So I didn't enjoy that at all. And Scotty had a COVID haircut for sure. And Mr. Farrell at Helm was just terrible. Couldn't act and was terrible. So I didn't enjoy this one. Discovery dealt with Harry Mudd a lot better. Bye.
Yeah, ironically, it dealt with him a lot better by having him go around just shooting people all over the place. But actually, you could be right.
Yeah.
I mean, in just over a minute, she summed up quite a lot of what's wrong with Mudd swimming there. I didn't have a problem with Farrell. I thought he was all right. I mean, he's certainly not as good as Sulu, say, but, you know, he's okay. But, yeah, the whole concept of the episode is just icky and wrong. Let's move on.
Yes.
Oh, damn, we've got to move on to something else. Well, not inherently icky, but has icky elements.
Yes.
I would say.
Captain's log, stardate 1672.9. Due to the malfunction of the ship's transporter, an unexplained duplicate of myself exists.
What can I do for you, Jeff?
I said, give me the brandy! Come on, Spark, I know that look. What is it?
Well, our good doctor said that you were acting like a wild man.
Oh, Captain. You started hurting me. I had to fight you. Fisher saw you too.
It wasn't me. It was you, sir.
Captain Kirk! I'm Captain Kirk!
Worth saying before we begin that this episode comes with a trigger warning for attempted rape. So The Enemy Within, written by one Richard Matheson.
Oh, he wrote What's It?
I Am Legend.
And didn't he also write another Star Trek?
He didn't write another Star Trek, but he did write 16 episodes of The Twiglet Zone.
Oh, okay.
Including the one featuring Shatner on a plane. And I do believe that Jim on Hypnagoria did an entire podcast about Richard
But what he
Matheson.
wrote that wasn't screenplays, like
Yeah.
as in books and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In writing this, he was inspired by Jekyll and Hyde,
Yep.
which is fairly obvious from it. It's directed by Leo Penn, father of Sean Penn.
Oh, okay.
He was never asked to come back because he ran a day over in the shooting of this. Okay. The story opens with a bunch of science crewmen in overalls and Sulu holding that dog. Yeah, that's disappointingly little online about that dog. I was expecting to find out stuff, but no. Anyway, we never find out what it's supposed to be or why Sulu is holding one, to be honest. It's just like, random dog under my arm. And, when a crewman goes and falls, Sulu comes rushing up. He doesn't put the dog down, no. He comes rushing up with the dog under his arm. This is geological technician Fisher.
And, at one point in the episode, he has to, give a distress signal. And
Yeah,
he gets
he
cut
gives his
off.
full title.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he's
I
like,
know,
if
so
all he
funny.
went was Deck 12, help now, then
Yeah.
he would have got the message through. But because he says geological...
It's a geological technician
Fisher. Ah!
Serial number 624.
That's ridiculous.
Anyway, he gets covered in yellow paint for some reason. Although I think it's supposed to be ore, which interacts with the transporter when he gets beamed up. Yes, we have our first transporter goes wonky story. We're not too far in here, are we? He's played by Edward Madden, who appeared in The Cage, also playing a geologist, so presumably it's the same guy. We have a transporter technician, Wilson, played by Garland Thompson, who will have another appearance in the original series. Scotty scans Fisher with an actual radiation detector called a cutie pie.
Wow.
Yeah. Wilson takes Fisher to sickbay, and Scotty beams the captain up, who materialises all dizzy, and without his insignia for some reason.
Yeah, it sucked his insignia off.
Strange side effect. Or more likely a costume oversight. The engineer accompanies him to sickbay, and another Kirk materialises, who's clearly evil because he's wearing mascara or whatever that heck that eye makeup is.
Guyliner.
Guyliner, okay.
Yeah, but you know he's evil because dramatic music.
Yeah. Ebor Kirk demands McCoy gives him Saurian brandy, and then makes for Janice Rand's quarters. Oh boy.
It looks like he's got brandy in a watering can.
Just reminds me of the things you got from Greece. It's one of those type of things.
Oh, yeah. Now, my parents brought some of them back and then stuck them on their windowsill where they just slowly rotted.
Yes. Spock visits topless Good Kirk.
Oh.
Because you've got to have a scene with Kirk with no shirt on.
Oh.
Good Kirk and Spock go to see Scotty, who tells them about the transporter malfunction. And has discovered the two dogs, one of which is evil.
It just barks a bit.
As a result, they need to leave Sulu and the others on the planet to freeze. They couldn't shuttle them up.
I know, I said that at the time we were watching. You know, I get why they can't use the transporter, but why can't they use a shuttle?
The answer is that the series hasn't invented them yet, sadly.
Okay.
So that's yes, but it's not a good reason, is it?
No.
Now, the whole Sulu on the planet stuff was a subplot added, wasn't in the original Richard Matheson script, and I think it's much needed because there's not enough happening in the story as it is.
Yeah.
But there we go. We get Good Kirk differentiated by wearing his alternative captain's top.
Just a man in a uniform. Tonight, that's what I want you to be. She said, third time this week, one suit. But I don't give a damn, you see. They call man in a uniform.
Which is green for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, suppose it makes some sense for the captain to stand out by wearing a different uniform. It also has a design suspiciously reminiscent of a girdle. Yes, clearly he didn't keep to that leaf diet that McCoy demanded in the Corbomite movie.
But it's also, it doesn't have the insignia where you would expect.
No,
it has it the wrong way up.
Yeah, as part of holding it all together and in. Yes.
I mean, I could understand if that was where the rank braiding was, because it would fit, but...
The rank braiding instead is all around the neck, very oddly.
In a way that doesn't work, where the insignia is the right shape to be somewhere near the neck.
Yeah. Anyway.
Some idiot designed that, who didn't understand shapes.
Right. On the upside, they understood materials better, because this isn't velour like all the other uniforms.
Yeah, true.
Which have shrunk because they're made of velour.
Yeah.
And noticeably so already. Ebel Kirk makes his move on Rand, which is very grim to watch.
It's horrible.
She scratches him in the process, which will come in handy for identification. Thankfully, she also manages to get a door open and alert Fisher, whom Kirk then beats up. Nice. Good Kirk Axel, shocked at being told what's been done by Spock, but somehow neither of them jump to the logical conclusion, despite having been shown the dog. I mean, the audience is so far ahead of everybody else at this point. It's painful.
It's like if they hadn't been shown the dog, I completely understand why you wouldn't think that there was a duplicate. But because they've been shown the dog, it should actually be fucking obvious.
Yep. Meanwhile, Ebel Kirk appears scratched hand first, which is a weird shot choice.
Yeah.
It walks around with her arm like that. Ta-da! And the only time you do that is when you're doing an impression of a Dalek, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They make poor Rand relive her trauma in front of the man she thinks committed it. It's like, what? Really? That's the best approach? As if that weren't icky enough, apparently, according to her testimony, Grace Lee Whitney was struggling to betray the right sense of upset, so Shatner slapped her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good Kirk points out the lack of scratches, but still they're not talking about the damn dogs in front of folk, even though Spock makes it clear he's put 2 and 2 together. He goes on to argue that they shouldn't tell the crew that there are 2 Kirks around, as that will undermine Kirk's authority, as the captain has to be perfect in their eyes.
What absolute bollocks.
What? No sense. Let a rapey, murderous version of the captain wander around with impunity, because otherwise the good Kirk won't have the respect in the eyes of the crew. Wow.
And also, it's wrong that a captain has to appear perfect, just anyway. It's wrong because they've got to have a search party to search for the other Kirk. So you've got to tell the crew something. Yeah. And not telling them the truth is going to do far more harm. Plus, the idea that if they lose their faith in you, then you won't be able to captain them. Well, actually, that's kind of what the chain of command is for, so that actually if something does go wrong, you obey anyway because of the chain of command.
Or, and it doesn't take a genius to work this out at this point, you've got 2 Kirks wandering around, one of which is an Ebel Kirk that you don't want people taking orders from, so immediately announce that Spock is taking over command of the ship.
Yeah.
Solution. Yeah. Straight away.
Very easy. But the Kirk, who apparently isn't capable of making decisions, keeps repeatedly making the decision not to relinquish command.
Oh, don't. And I wouldn't mind. So we get all this, and then immediately the next scene, Kirk tells the entire crew about it. I don't know whether that's a sign of him losing his ability to command, but he does the exact thing that Spock just told him not to do. Although it is the sensible thing to do, to be frank, but oh dear. I mean, there is a really nice shot looking down on Kirk in the command chair, looking all conflicted like. I like that, but yeah. In a predictably unrestrained performance from Shatner, Ebel Kirk smashes up Rand's quarters, yelling, "I'm Captain Kirk! And so is my wife." Our son was just in stitches at this point.
Yeah.
He then covers up his identifying scratches with the Yeoman's Foundation, which you reckon isn't a thing about modern Foundation, but possibly could be with Foundation of the future.
Yeah.
Before suckering in Wilson and taking his phaser, despite Wilson already being warned that there's an Ebel Kirk around, but never mind.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, the established design for the Mark II phaser. Hurrah!
I like the phaser.
It's cool. Kirk and Spock figure out Ebel Kirk will be hiding in engineering. Don't quite know what the logic is there, but anyway, I suppose there are more places to hide there, maybe. It's a lovely set, anyway, that debuts here. Bigger than I remember, actually. I think the later engineering sets in other seasons are smaller, but anyway, this has got 2 whole rooms, which is excellent. And also it has a bit of ceiling, which is always nice to see. They try and give a sense of it being much bigger with false perspective that doesn't quite carry it off, but there we go. I love the big generator things, though, which Ebel Kirk hides on top of. The Kirks hunt themselves, And you're wondering where Spock has gone to before he then turns up and Vulcan nerve pinches the evil one.
Yay!
Hooray! Now, in the script originally, famously, Nimoy was supposed to punch Shatner's lights out. No, sorry. Spock was supposed to, but I'm sure Nimoy wanted to. But anyway. But yes, Nimoy suggested instead that the nerve pinch, which is a lot better idea.
Yeah. And I love that which becomes so iconic was Nimoy's idea.
Yeah. They tie a bad body double to a biobed, and Spock discusses the fact that Evil Kirk has all the command chops for some reason. Pretty sure this isn't true, that evil people are better commanders. I mean, I suppose it might go some way to why people voted for Trump, but even so...
Well, there are times when you have to make really tough decisions.
Yeah.
If you think about Next Gen and the command exam that Troy has, she has to send someone to their death, doesn't she? And that's part of
But that
command.
wasn't evil.
No.
And there's a difference between being decisive and being evil. I'm sorry, the two things aren't the same.
No, they're not, but I can kind of see where they're coming from when it comes to those sorts of decisions, that if you only had compassion and you didn't also have steel, you could waver at a crucial point.
But I don't
rather than send
see either of those attributes as associated with evilness. I'm sorry, but it's not evil to be decisive.
No.
It's not evil to, make a determined decision necessarily. No. I mean, you might make an evil determined decision, but you can likewise make a good determined decision. It's not the evilness that makes you do that. So the fact that Kirk has been split into good and evil, and the good suddenly can't make commands and make his mind, makes no sense at all, I'm afraid.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Plus...
I mean, all it says is that we are so wedded to the idea of capitalism, which is all about every man for themselves. Now, it says a lot about that, but it doesn't say a lot actually about being determined and making the right decisions.
It also says an awful lot about the concept of the alpha male, which has since been debunked. The idea that the man has to lead, the man has to be strong. It's all stemming from the toxic masculinity, and if you don't have toxic masculinity, you don't see some things as good, and you don't see it that way, because every personality trait has good and bad aspects. There aren't bad personality traits. There are traits that can be good or bad. So, it can be helpful to be really compassionate, but there can be times when it can make you dither, and when you do have to sacrifice one life to save 3 billion, it can. Do you know what I mean? It can prevent that. That's not compassion is the wrong thing. It's about how it's somebody's personality, and it has good points and bad points. And being decisive can be a good thing, but sometimes it means you make bad decisions because you make them quickly without thinking things through.
Or listening to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not wrong to listen to other people, but equally, if you only ever do what other people say, that's wrong. Do you see what I mean? It's like every person...
And having had a jab at the previous leader of the United States, our current leader, one of his massive flaws is that he's a diverer that can't make decisions quick enough.
Yeah.
And to really fatally so for our nation, and several thousand people dying as a result of him, not making the decisions when he should do.
Yeah.
So it's not an evil thing. It's not a good thing being indecisive. That's not a good trait necessarily. So.
No.
Oh,
and you can't say that Boris Johnson is insufficiently evil.
Well, yeah.
Because he isn't. He's just an evil cunt.
Mm.
So, it's just all wrong.
It's all
and
wrong.
Bollocks.
Yes. Sulu jokes about the ship dangling down coffee or rice wine for them, which is nice. The problem is the transporter needs a week worth of repairs, thanks to Evil Kirk shooting part of it when they caught him in engineering. You see Sulu fixing a Mark 1 phaser into the pistol grip to make it a Mark 2, which is nice. It's the only time we see this. And he phasers some rocks to keep them warm. But yes, again, why aren't they sending a shuttle? Yeah. They haven't invented the shuttles yet. We have some crap screaming from Evil Kirk, who's apparently dying. I have to take him back inside myself, Jim reflects. Fanar? McCoy repeats Spock's reflections, which at this point feels like padding.
Yep.
It's another episode that's 10 minutes too long, I'm afraid. Poor Scotty has the job of holding the evil doggy still while Spock tranquilises it to try a transporter experiment. I thought the transport was going to take a week to fix. Suddenly, I don't know whether there was supposed to be a period of time that had passed or something.
Yeah, anyway. I don't know.
The doggy rematerialises in one part, but as McCoy famously points out,
it's dead, Jim.
We cheered, and our son sat there looking at us like, what the hell? It's like, don't worry, this is a thing. You'll get used to this. Spot makes a captain's log for the first time because Good Kirky's will is fading. He supposes the animal died of shock, which shouldn't affect the Kirks. In a nice scene, the captain is bamboozled by his first officer and doctor and can't decide between them, which is really well directed the way they do that as well. He stupidly refuses to relinquish command, despite being clearly unable to make decisions. But as you point out, he is able to make the decision not to relinquish command.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a logic circle we're going through here. We hear Uhura over the intercom saying that Sulu's hailing. This is the only bit of Uhura in this episode, so it's even worse than the last one. We don't even see her. Stupidly, Good Kirk releases his evil self, who knocks him out. And there's another scene with him and Rand where he talks about explaining things to her in her quarters. Then he's on the bridge ordering Pharrell to leave Sulu and Co behind. McCoy turns up with Good Kirk, and we're supposed to worry about the wrong one being chosen, but they should already know
it's bloody
which
obvious.
is which, yes, thanks to his orders to leave. Cue more overacting and bad body double work. Plus a shot of evil Kirk that's obviously been reversed because the scar is on the wrong side of his face.
Yep.
Which is the result of the director breaking the line of sight rule. So, you know, when you cut to somebody, the first person's looking left, you cut to the other person, they need to be looking right at them. He got that wrong, so it was one of the reasons why they didn't hire him again. It all culminates in Kirk getting into the transporter. There's a moment of tension where they try and make it look like Kirk won't be back. And you think, hey, Spock's captain, this is going to improve things. But no, Kirk comes back and orders Sulu and Co beamed aboard. Oh, and there's a final horrible scene between Spock and Rand about the imposter having some interesting qualities.
Oh.
Yay, attempted rape joke. Well done, Spock.
That's horrible. Whereas the scene between the now normal Kirk and Rand is much better because she starts trying to say something and he just looks at her and says, thank you, Yeoman. And that's it. It's just like, that's it. You don't have to say anything.
That was really good, and that should have been episode end, shouldn't it? But no, they had to go and ruin it all. So, interesting concept. Guy gets split into evil and good twins. Not helped by Shatner's acting.
No.
Or the fact there's only at tops 40 minutes worth of material rather than 50. Or the fatal flaw that they should just use the shuttle to rescue the away team. Plus, there's the awful, shabby treatment of Rand, which leaves a very bad taste.
It's really horrible, and there are other ways to show that a man is evil.
Yeah, and they haven't thought through what constitutes an evil quality and what constitutes a good quality. So
no, and just it doesn't fucking work, and it's a big pile of steaming shit.
Well, it's less. I think it comes out better just because it's followed an even worse episode. But yeah, and as I say, it does, at its core, has an interesting concept, but it's so badly realised that, the scenes with Rand. Oh, really?
See, for me, those scenes with Rand mean that this is worse than Mud's Women.
I can understand you saying that, yeah. You can sort of, look away and, la la la, and cut out those scenes, and you've got an interesting story still, even if it is flawed. But yeah, you're right. They're not pleasant to watch.
And it's not just that they're not pleasant to watch. It's the idea that basically what the episode is saying is that every man has a rapist inside them.
Well,
which I don't think is true.
Anyways, so we find out what other people made of this.
Yeah. So we heard from Boss, who writes, split personalities and transporter malfunction, classic Trek ideas that started here. Mm-hmm. This episode was a real test of Shatner's acting range, which I'll give him a D+ for.
That's generous.
I thought he was better as good Kirk,
slowly
losing his drive and decision-making ability, than over-the-top bad Kirk.
But he was still a bit over the top as good Kirk, to be honest.
The story is quite straightforward and just about works. So here's some other thoughts. The away team on the planet could really have done with the coats they used in the cage.
Exactly, yes. Where are the away jackets?
The voiceover at the beginning to tell us there had been a transporter malfunction was totally unnecessary. The speed with which Yeoman Rand's complaint was dismissed was just plain wrong. Poor cosplay dog.
Yes. Alas, poor alien doggy, we barely knew ye. We've heard from Doreen. Will she be equally unimpressed with this one?
Hi, I've just watched The Enemy Within. before I get into the meat of the episode, I want to talk about Yeoman Janice's hair, before I forget again. I like the chessboard in her, I guess it's a beehive. Also, I've been noticing the uniforms a lot more, and the sort of lower ranks, and they're sort of, well, they look a bit like dressing gown type effect, but they might be dungarees. And also, I noticed in Captain Kirk's green top rather than his gold top that the wee badge was actually on the end of a sort of belt thing. So that was quite interesting. The depiction of the wicked Kirk's attempted rape was quite good, I think. And I think that it was really good that they didn't have the yeoman just look like she was like going along with it to begin with. She was definitely like, what on earth's going on here? And made me quite uncomfortable when I saw that she was getting questioned by the Doctor, Spock. Well, that wasn't what made me uncomfortable, but the good Kirk was also questioning her, so that made me think of when poor victims have to get questioned by their person who assaulted them. And I was quite impressed by how they'd handled the topic until the very end, when blooming Kirk's back together and the yeoman's getting things signed, and then Spock goes, "He had some quite interesting qualities, that wicked one, didn't he?" As if she wanted it rough. For heaven's sake. I'm glad that some of us have learned quite a bit, and some film writers have learned quite a bit since the 60s. Oh, that dog. That poor dog. No, well, we've got a couple of dogs across the hall from us who yap all the time. I'm very glad that they didn't have them dressed up in horns and stuff. Anyway, it's quite good. And also I was wondering why they weren't using shuttles when they couldn't use this transporter, but Anthony said that they didn't actually have them. So, they couldn't use what they didn't have. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You're right in that up until Spock's really insensitive and wrong comment, it is a good portrayal of what women go through. In terms of struggling to be believed. Do you realise what you're saying about this person that matters to us? Having to give evidence right in front
of the person who did that to them. Yeah, that's the real slammer of it. But you're right, unfortunately, that's in some ways hasn't completely changed now.
So that aspect of it is good. It isn't good, the idea that every man needs their inner rapist. Mm-hmm. But that aspect is good, and if it hadn't been for Spock's horrible comments, you could argue that this is a good portrayal of, what women, not just women, actually, just victims of abuse go through when they are abused by someone who also has power.
Yeah.
And yes, the poor dog.
Yes.
And yeah. You're right, they can't use what they don't have in terms of shuttles.
Well, yeah, I mean, there needed to be a line to explain that. But again, it's
they
not...
They didn't know they needed it because they didn't know that shuttles were going to be invented later.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the whole problem, is that they haven't... It's not the Enterprise doesn't have them, it's that the series doesn't have them yet. That's the issue. But never mind. But I do love Rand's hair as well. It's a thing of art and beauty as far as I'm concerned. And it's good that you're noticing uniforms. Hey, I'm being educative again.
What did the Llama God make of this?
Llama God's Log Supplemental. We have arrived in the Earth year 1984 to witness Decepticon, Starscream, and Autobot Brawn fighting to clear their names. It's not that enemy within, is it? No, it's not that classic story. Oh, well, never mind. Let's get back to this one then. Right, so, is this one better? Well, now, there is somewhere a good story to be told about the dual nature that resides within all humans, and that is our emotional sides, our primal sides, the evolutionary hindbrain, which is in constant battle with our logical, evolved side. Unfortunately, this story is not it. whilst you can forgive the clumsiness of the story, perhaps for being maybe ahead of its time or something that viewers might not have seen a lot of in the 1960s, this one once again features some very dodgy sexual politics, in that it features Rand in her first appearance, I think, or at least her first production appearance, being attacked by the evil Kirk. Although it's not the evil Kirk, is it? It's just his necessary negative side, so he's not even evil. So she's attacked by an aspect of Kirk, basically nearly raped, and then at the end of the episode it's laughed off and she apologises for it. And again, that is just not a good look for a series that prides itself on being progressive. The fact the episode ends with Spock uttering the line, "The imposter had some interesting qualities, wouldn't you say," to Rand, which seems to be setting up the idea that because negative Kirk attacked her, that means that complete whole Kirk has feelings for her. That's no, that is not okay at all. Yeah, boys will be boys, I guess. Yeah, he pulled your tails, he hit you, that just means he likes you. Yeah, no, that's not. And I'd like to say that that's just a sign of it being the 60s, but really that sort of attitude is still prevalent today. You haven't really come much further from that at all. So again, it's another very problematic episode. The actual central conceit of Shatner's Kirk being split in two, yeah, his acting gets a bit over the top, but, you know, it was probably acceptable for the time. And at the very least, the crew doesn't spend that long trying to figure out what's going on and making fools of themselves. We have hilarious scenes of the negative Kirk getting up to mischief while no one has a clue what it is, so at least there is that to it. But on the whole, the stuff with Rand really sours the taste of this episode for me, so yeah. What will be interesting to hear is how many of our first-time viewers are going to stick with it after this one. Jo herself has said that she's not particularly keen on watching anymore if it's going to be like this going forwards, and my memories from watching it, and it's going to be a while ago now, it's at least 20 years since I watched the series, are that it's not quite this bad, but I didn't remember these episodes from being this bad either. So yeah, these outdated approaches are going to be difficult and problematic as we go along, so yeah, so we'll see. So as ever, I'll be interested to hear what everyone else made of these episodes, whether they had the same problems that I did with it. I hope everyone's staying safe as things return to normal, whatever normal is these days. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you. Yes, there is something about the dual nature of humanity, but this isn't it.
Mm.
And yeah, she is attacked by an aspect of Kirk, which means that all the other stuff is just horribly wrong. It's just that where some of it is a good portrayal is that is the reality. And the attitude in terms of people's attitudes to people coming forward. Do you know what I mean? And how women, that is the reality, is portraying a reality. And you're right that unfortunately that attitude is still around today, isn't it?
And I think it's portraying it unquestioningly. It's not portraying it in a way that's supposed to make us think, oh, that's wrong that they're making her give her evidence in front of the person who actually potentially did that to her. I think it's just presenting it as the normal, basically, without any commentary attached.
Yeah, which is, yeah. Whereas if more modern Trek did this, there would be something saying, a character saying how wrong it is.
Yeah. This isn't Rand's first production appearance. She was in Corbomite Maneuver, phasering Kirk's coffee for him.
Yeah, Randy brings me coffee.
Yep. But yeah, it is very unfortunate. I think we've got two of, arguably, in terms of uncomfortableness, two of the worst episodes of the original series, both together. On the upside, we've got them out of the way now, so hopefully, he says, the only way is up. I mean, there are still crap episodes to cover, but certainly I remember Mud's women being crap, and I also remember that there were bad scenes in this, so yeah. I don't think it gets this bad again, but I could yet be proved wrong, of course.
I've a feeling there is one story involving a woman wearing not a lot, but it's silver.
There is an awful lot of stories of women not wearing a lot. Or, well, not necessarily not wearing a lot, but those strategic William Worth-esque costumes that, yeah.
But I think there is one story involving a woman wearing one of those silver costumes where... And I could be misremembering this, and that's fine, but I think that she is incapable of consent, but he seems to act as though she's given it. But that's one episode. Most of the rest of the original series, to the best of what I can remember, when we talk about a crap episode, it's things like sentient pancakes.
Oh, that's a good episode, even if the pancake isn't very good, but yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing.
Yeah. Most of the time, the crapness comes from their inability to realise what the imagination of the writer is.
Or shacting.
Yes.
You get quite a bit of that.
Yet to come.
So that tends to be what the issue is, rather than it being crap like this is crap. It's not, as I said, I could be misremembering.
Uncomfortable crap, yes.
And I could be misremembering that one episode. but I think there is one episode.
No, I think I know what you mean. Yeah, maybe the Game Masters of Triskelon, if memory serves. But yes, it's a way off yet, that one. So yeah.
So, if she's okay for watching more, I would say see what Joe makes of the next 2, and if she bails after that, she bails after that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my recommendation to her. Not try the lot. Try the next 2.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, we hear from Drew and Tracy.
So we've just watched The Enemy Within.
Yes, we did.
And what do we think of that one then?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I have to mention first off, the Space Dog.
Yeah, it's a classic Trek.
Didn't really have much purpose other than to like be.
Well, it's to see what's happened.
Squished at the end, but that dog was like drugged throughout.
Maybe.
It was just weird.
Yes, and just while we're on the dog subject, at the I know it's only a scene or 2 before they do figure it out, but you know they have the scene of the 2 dogs. One's angry, one's not, and then they have the scene where Janice says, "Oh, it was the captain's at me," and we're just like, "Put it together, guys,
Exactly.
put it together." They do like in the next scene,
but
they straight away should have gone. Hold on a minute,
half an hour.
Yeah,
and I said to you at the time, why has Spock not clocked that baddie is wearing eyeliner?
I know.
All baddies
this
wear
is the
eyeliner.
Thing. Yes, I know.
Come
That's how
on
you
now.
know Robert Smith's evil, isn't it? But yeah, what is with the eyeliner?
Exactly. So let's talk about like the nastiness. So the yeoman was like,
yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, that was quite hard. But what I found worse was that when she was having to relive her story, you had 3 dominant males standing up in front of her.
The attacker, as far as she's... I know, yes.
I just thought that was a
just
little
have to
bit...
put it down to like...
Well, it was the
know,
60s and whatever,
yeah.
but I just thought there is no way this would ever have
I know,
been
obviously.
written in. But I just felt like really sorry for her.
It's awful. When Scott goes engineering and he says, "Oh, I found the trouble. It's this hole in like... that's been blasted in the thing."
Yeah, we fucking saw that half an hour ago.
I know, why didn't anyone say, "Oh, by the way, Scott, you might want to go and check out this
the
where he's
impossible blast and a
the
great
thing."
big
Yeah.
hole down there.
And plus, that's just the one bit that controls like the vital bit of the transfer. It's like, oh, it's all right. That's the bit that makes the lights flash on either side of the dish. Don't worry about that. No, it's the one bit he shoots is the transport bit.
Indeed. So let's just talk about kind of near the ending. So they realise that there's a baddie and a goodie. Kirk is kind of what I would say kind of incapacitated because he literally cannot make a decision.
Yeah,
He's
this
lost
is the
all
thing,
his
isn't
kind
it?
of
Yeah.
like
They're saying,
confidence
like,
and
the-
decision making.
yeah.
But this is where Bone should have stepped in and said, as chief medical officer, I don't think you are fit enough to command this ship.
Relieve him of duty.
But no, because as we said, if he is relieved of duty, then it kind of puts a marker on his status as captain and it could go on his record.
Yeah.
But what he could have said was, you need to have a week off, so I'm going to put you on medical leave for
Maybe.
a week and let Spock take over.
You might feel better in a week.
We might have done. But
Yeah, I
there
know
was
what you're
no
saying.
way that he could have been in charge. I mean, what would have happened if they'd had a Klingon attack at that point?
Yes, I know. It's questionable that he should have maybe have stepped in, or Spock, and said, I relieve your command. Maybe.
Either, they're like, oh, are you okay? No, he's not fucking okay. He's supposed to be a captain of a starship.
Talking of which, when Spock and McCoy are talking about putting Kirk back in the thing, it's like a reversal of their roles, because Spock's saying, oh, it's obvious, the dog died of shock. And McCoy's saying there's no evidence. What's he saying? It could be, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like McCoy's being logical, Spock's being all like emotional about it.
Yeah.
A strange reverse.
Yeah, but they still went ahead and put him in there then.
Yep. Shatner, I think when he's the weak stuff, he's a good actor in this.
Well, he just shows a bit of a soft side, doesn't he?
The angry stuff, not so good.
I just thought there's 2 Shatners in this for me.
There is
I was
2
like,
Shatners,
win, ding, ding, ding.
Spock at the end to Janice. Oh, it's interesting qualities. I know he's not got emotions, but he must realise that's a crass thing to say.
That was worth a punch in the
I
nose.
know,
That was.
she should have
for
done.
Christ's sake.
So yeah, again, classic episode, isn't it? It's
Going on.
classic episode of Trek.
And we've forgotten to mention poor Sulu and the crew on the planet. I mean, for fuck's sake, he's like dying of frost, but it took a long time for him to look frozen.
Yes, it did. Yes.
And when he's asking to beam down coffee.
Yeah, they could have beamed down coffee or blankets, couldn't they? Because the thing is, if they'd beamed down one coffee, you'd get two. It would have been great.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Just a bit daft. That
or
one,
shuttlecraft, of course. Could have flied shuttlecraft, but don't worry about that. But yeah, it's a classic episode of Trek. Yeah. I think it's good.
It was
good
alright.
stuff. Questionable stuff in it, but
Yeah.
60s. It's good stuff.
I enjoyed it.
I did.
Anyway, let's have another one.
Okay.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thing is, if they went to beam down one coffee, and we don't know that this works with beaming down as well as beaming up, but let's suppose it does, you'd end up with one really insipid some kind of caramel latte, and then the other one would be like strength 72 and kill you.
The best coffee ever. And then I died.
Yeah. It would fucking give you a heart
do make the point
attack.
that they beamed down to try to beam down some heaters, and they didn't work. So it's if they tried beaming coffee down, it wouldn't have worked somehow.
It would be decaf.
It'd be decaf. That is evil coffee. Very good point about Bones should have relieved Kirk from duty.
And if he was worried about the mark on his record, he should have just said, go on holiday for a week.
Yeah, exactly. You can do it temporarily. But, I mean, not just for the reason that the current Kirk the good Kirk is unable to make decisions for some reason, but also because actually it's a security risk.
Yeah.
There's a guy wandering around
looking like him, so you take him out the loop. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that won't look bad on your record. It's not your fault that you're evil twins going around punching people and doing very unpleasant things.
Yeah. And you're right. Why did it take so long for Scotty to find, or anyone to point out the fuck off massive hole in the...
I mean, both Spock at the very least saw.
Yeah.
And the other good Kirk saw as well.
I didn't think to go, Scotty, there's like a big
Big
thing,
hole
a
in the
hole
wall.
now. You might want to investigate the hole.
Check it out. And I do wonder why the transporter controls are in engineering. Shouldn't they be in the transporter room? But anyway.
Well, it was something to do with the transporter was in engineering.
Yeah,
so it
but
might
why?
be taking power from. I don't know.
Yeah, quite. Anyway.
Do you think the dog was drugged?
I think it was just hot under all the lights and the fact that he was wearing a blooming thick costume. So I suspect that's the reason why it's looking rather dopey, blessed.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
And finally, we've heard from Puri.
Hello again. Puri here to talk about The Enemy Within, or, oh my god, the Shatner overacting. So this one, there's a lot of wrong things in this. The horrible thing they did to that poor dog, the weird alien creature was clearly some sort of poodle, maybe a terrier, with its fur dyed, a horn and dealy boppers glued to its head. And I noticed now they put like a spine and a tail onto it. Poor bloody dog. And I mean the plot of this one's fairly simple. Kirk's split into two. I think they do try to do a bit more with this. They do try to make it a bit different than just one is the Kirk we know and one is an evil mirror Kirk. They do try to say he's been split and all the aspects that have been put into one side. And I mean, this is where the episode, because again, there's a couple of problems. I'm going to go into why it makes me uncomfortable in a bit. I did like the MacGuffin they used to kind of put a time scale on it, that Sulu and a crew are trapped on the planet and it gets very cold at night and they don't have supplies. And they did say, they tried beaming down heaters and they didn't work because the transporter's faulty. Although, I do wonder, could they not have beamed them down coats? Because surely there's only so much that can go wrong with a coat. It doesn't beam down as two evil coats. So, that was a bit weird, but... and I think there is also a hint that the uniforms are meant to be all-weather, a super space fabric. But they don't generally mention that. They keep wrapping themselves in that weird awning they had. So first transporter going wrong episode, I suppose that's the first as well. But the weird thing with this one is to an extent, a lot of the action parts actually finish up by about halfway through the episode, and for a good chunk it's Kirk, they're trying to solve the problem, and I liked that as a format, that the whole thing wasn't constantly evil Kirk and good Kirk stalking each other through the ship. It was actually more contemplating how they were going to solve the problem. My issue with it, so for starters, we have a sexual assault in this, or at least an attempted one. by Evil Kirk on poor old Janice Rand. That's quite harsh. I mean, it was quite, it's fairly heavy. It's kind of not a great thing to watch on the screen. And what really bugged me at the end of the episode was actually that Spock kind of did a leery, well, Evil Kirk had definitely had attractive concepts. Don't you agree, Yeoman? Now, I could actually see a very good case for her calling Space HR straight away and getting Spock pulled up on that one, and I think better of Spock for that. That's not the sort of thing I'd expect from him, so horribly out of character, and again, just a horribly skeevy and creepy line. Again, I'd want to check the hard drive of whoever wrote that one. Let's just say that. Probably what their movements are. That's just red flags all over the place. But the other thing is, her boss effectively made an attempt at assault, and it is stressed that part is still in Kirk, and yet she's returning, and they do have her say, "Oh, I don't blame you," and it's no, actually, this should be a thing of she has to be transferred off the ship at the next opportunity, because regardless, I can't imagine facing that every day and having to go into his quarters and feed him his salads is going to be something she wants to do. So that was kind of bad and ick. You also had the part that actually bothers me is this concept that without his dark half, the half that will kill and fight, basically, that's almost his lizard brain, we sometimes call it. That's the part that only has desires and wants and a need to survive. And without that, he is a weak, ineffectual captain. He can't make decisions, and he's all very unsure. And it's like actually, I don't think that's correct. And yes, there is. Everyone needs a bit of a bastard in them to do things, particularly if you're in a position in charge. But it's not the feral beast that we saw there. It's actually usually a colder, calculating thing that we see in that. And so, I thought this is very much, again, it feels a bit too much like defending people who behave like Evil Kirk in that way. We also do have some terrible overacting with Shatner. I thought I'd just throw that in at the end. Neither of these two were particularly good. Quite a duff bunch. So hopefully we've got some better ones next time. But until then, all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I also look forward to the podcast, and I'll feed back for the next ones. But until then, bye for now.
Yeah, I think if the evil coats were beamed down, they'd be full of holes or leak in the rain or something like that.
Oh, they'd attack you when you put them on, like straitjackets, and suddenly you wouldn't be able to do anything.
And yes, I think it's worth checking the hard drive it's either whoever wrote this episode or whoever effectively script edited this episode, which would be Gene Roddenberry. So we don't know it's him for sure, but previous evidence.
Cunt.
Can't say that about the great bird of the galaxy. Oh dear.
Yeah, you just shat on everyone's heads. Let's just fucking shoot him. Oh no, he's dead. We don't need to.
It is as well, possibly. Anyway, I mean, just alienated, Star Trek fans who still revere. Actually, I don't think there are too many around that do.
No,
anymore.
And the ones that do are the ones that think that that's proper Trek, and they're all misogynistic twats who need to die anyway.
So there we go. Bye. No, I'm pretty sure all our feedback are on the same wavelength as us.
Yeah, Yes. Yeah.
Well, a slight change of format going forward to the future, folks, simply because I don't have the same amount of time as I used to do.
Neither do I.
And fortnightly podcasts are great, but a lot of time involved in editing and stuff. So, basically, we're keeping to the fortnightly format.
Because we're still doing 2 podcasts.
Yes, so we're still bringing up a podcast every week, depending on whether you can cope with the cheese of Buck Rogers.
I can cope with that over this shit.
Well, there is something to be said for the cheese of Buck Rogers, isn't there, compared to the awkwardness of tonight's episodes. Anyway, the bottom line is, with the exception of when we cover multi-part stories, and there's only one in the original series run of Star Trek, and that's the Menagerie, we will be covering one episode every time in future. So the next one we're covering is the Man Trap, which is the Salt Monster one, which has been referenced a few times in Lower Decks.
Yeah, I seem to remember liking that.
It's very McCoy-centric, which is not a bad thing. And I don't think it's got the issues that these 2 episodes have. At least I hope it doesn't. I don't remember it having them.
No, I would agree with you. I don't remember it having those issues either.
Yeah. So there we go. I think that's something to look forward to. We're recording on the Thursday, the 20th of May. So do feel free to send in your thoughts on the Man Trap. Cheery bye.
Boys, bye.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Shut it down!
For heaven's sake.